the Dobbs Supreme Court ruling, abortion has been returned to the states. Roe and Casey are no longer the law of the land, and states, including the state that we're in, which I guess, now has basically nearly outlawed abortion, have made a patchwork of abortion laws that put some women in a bind where they must travel very far distances or incur all kinds of costs in order to abort unwanted babies or fetuses, whatever. Your nomenclature will probably depend on your sort of moral compass on this issue. Is this better than what existed before? Chase.
So the first thing is I've met lots and lots of women as I travel the campaign trail, and almost without a doubt that's the first question is, where do you stand on the topic of abortion?
So I'm not like other girls by making it like my 17th question.
No, I am pro-choice. I am unapologetically pro-choice on the concept of bodily autonomy. I believe in the right for a woman to choose up until the point of viability, after which I believe the only exception should be for the life of the mother, because at that point there is 2 viable lives at stake. But up until that point, that should be the decision of the mother if they want to continue the pregnancy. I think there are things we can do to lower the number of abortions in this country without outlawing it and making criminals of doctors and women. We can make birth control over the counter so it's easier to access. We can, streamline the process of adoption so more people see that as a viable alternative. But what we cannot do in this country is deny women their bodily autonomy. It is something that is paramount to freedom. And so as somebody who is pro-choice, I am going to be a pro-choice candidate. I recognize that might lose me the votes of some people in this room, but it's where I stand, it's where my convictions are, and it's where, lots of long hours of faith and reflection have brought me to.
What do you say to the pro-life libertarians, though, that say that that's a total violation of the non-aggression principle, that the, unborn child bears rights too, and who would we be as libertarians if we allow those to be transgressed upon?
So my answer to that is if you believe the patchwork quilt of abortion policies across the country would actually solve that, you're not. If you believe abortion is murder, you should want abortion outlawed everywhere, all right? If that is your position, it should be outlawed everywhere, because murder is illegal everywhere. I happen to think that there is a gray area there of conscience and allow individuals to make those decisions. And if you are pro-life in a pro-choice world, you have every right to not have an abortion. You just don't have the right to make that very, very personal determination for someone else.
I saw Michael with the hand up.
Yeah, so this is a very thorny and unpleasant topic, to be honest. But I should say this. The first thing I want to say is I don't want the state involved in arbitrating this issue at all. I don't want the state arresting women and doctors. I don't want the state hounding people, running them out of business. What I want is basically what I want doesn't matter. What matters is that what people want to do. And I do think, frankly, that abortion is a violation of the NAP. I do believe that, and this is just my personal belief, it has nothing to do with what I would do. I do believe that no matter the size or stage of development of an individual, they have the right of property in themselves, which is the primary, most fundamental right that we advocate as libertarians, property in oneself. So I do believe that's a violation. So what I would do is tell the truth of what I think. I think it's wrong, but I am not going to bring the state in to bring an end to it. That is just outrageous. We would have a nightmare in this country if that happened. The state has no business arbitrating this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Michael.
Thanks. I believe that how Chase feels about this and how I feel about this is really similar. And I would just like to, I'm going to ask Chase to answer a question on my time. I call myself pro-life, and you call yourself pro-choice. And yet, I don't think that our positions are very different. And this is the first time I've heard you say so boldly that you're pro-choice. And this is the first time anyone else is going to hear me say so boldly that I consider myself pro-life. And yet, I think our positions are similar. Would you agree with me that this should be a state issue?
No.
Okay, well, we do have differences.
Look, as in Chase, you're saying that sort of across the board, all states ought to adopt frameworks.
No. He's saying you believe it should be a federal issue.
I believe it should be across the board a viability standard. Yes.
Across the board is language. I'm asking you if you would support federal legislation that said states are not allowed to make their own laws.
I support no legislation with regards to abortion at any level other than the viability standard, whether that's done at the state level.
So are you supporting federal legislation or not?
I don't think this is a states' rights issue. Because like I said, if you
I believe the whole world is a states' rights issue.
What I mean is if you believe abortion is murder, it should be outlawed in every state. And if you don't believe abortion is murder, if you believe that it's a choice.
Okay,
I
I get it.
It should be allowed in any
I get it. So now I do see that we have some differences. Look, I call myself pro-life because I don't like abortion. I'm not going to be able to hide how I feel about this issue, having been raised as a Lutheran and a Calvinist. But it needs to be said, we all want the government out of this. We all want the
I
Oh,
don't
government
know
out
if
of
I
this.
do. A little awkward.
We want the government
Don't tell
to
anyone
be
everything.
only involved in those stages where we all agree. For those of us who feel pro-life, we need to make this argument in a cultural sense, not using the government. You don't get to use the government and public policy as a weapon to make your argument. You don't get to skip to the end of the argument and say, well, now we're going to use public. I can't win my argument in a public policy sense, and so, now I get to shove it down your throat. That's not how this works. We need to allow states in conjunction, in alignment with their individual state cultures to make these decisions. Michael is right, this is an uncomfortable discussion, but this is not a discussion for us to impose on some other state. Just because I don't like abortion, just because I feel pro-life, doesn't mean I get to shove it down everyone else's throat.
Thank you. Do you, Lars?
Yes, absolutely. So, when I was young, I knew two different young ladies that had abortions. And I talked to them many years later, and one of them said that it was the horrible, worst decision of her life, and the other one said that it was the best decision of her life. I'm glad that I never have to make that decision. I don't think that if Mike and Chase argued all day and all night that they would change each other's mind, ever. And I don't think that if I said anything, it would change your mind on this issue. What I believe is that we should not use government force to tell one group of people how to behave over another group of people. And that's it. Thank you.
But we do that, so I want to follow up here.
Yeah.
But we do that in lots of areas, right? Like the murder example is a good one. We do have laws that are laws of the land that we don't really allow states to sort of decide their own course on.
And that's wrong.
Right? No, but so it's murder
The
should be a
federal
state by
government should
state
not be
issue.
involved in deciding whether murder is illegal, as much as we all agree. It's an easy one. Every state has laws against murder. You don't need the federal government telling you that killing someone is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Michael,
want to
do you
say
have a thought?
Mike's right here, and this has been my argument from the entire get-go of this campaign. Is this is decentralization? This is decentralization. This is a perfect example of it. You can't arbitrate what the cultures of various regions do, and in terms of this being, if it's a universal wrong, it is not recognized as such. Okay, so that's the fact. It's just not recognized as such. Yes, murder is illegal and it's recognized as such. But this is not. This is a very divisive issue, but it's not recognized. So those people that want to make their case for one side or the other need to do so. And that's the only thing that we can do. I think we need a campaign, a cultural and spiritual campaign, but that's just my belief. It isn't up to these four men on stage to decide this issue, Frank.
No, it should be up to me, the woman who's very pro-life.
Exactly.
I'm
sorry.
You guys wouldn't like the laws I call, but Chase, I do want to give you the opportunity to respond.
But what I'm saying is being pro-choice is allowing for that decision to be made at the individual level, which is the most localized level. That's the most decentralized level, is making an individual decision. That's why it needs to be allowed in all 50 states. The truth is a local tyranny is just as bad as a state tyranny, which is just as bad as a federal tyranny. Tyranny is tyranny. Removing body autonomy from women is wrong. It doesn't matter whether it's the state government doing it, the local government doing it, or the federal government doing it. Women have rights. And I will say that this is an inherent right. And if we're going to have a federal government, they should protect inherent rights, and one of those is bodily autonomy for every man, woman, and
with
child.
all due respect, Chase was not, there's no reason why Chase should have gotten an extra minute here. Let me pin you down, buddy, because what you just said, policy-wise,
I'm
is
not
that
running for president.
you believe in federal legislation making it impossible for a state to pass a law that says it's illegal to abort a child 10 minutes before delivery.
No.
That's what you just said.
No, I just said
I'm going to give you a chance to back off of it, but that's what you said.
I support the right to choose up until the viability standard, which is what most Americans support, while also supporting the Hyde Amendment, which would put no federal dollars towards abortion. But absolutely,
So you're saying that women don't have any choice until 10 minutes
No,
ago?
I support a federal standard that says no state may infringe upon the bodily autonomy of women, and that is a 50-state standard, and that is where the standard should be.
Okay.
Up until viability.
Up until viability.
Then say up
can I
until
chime in there?
I
viability.
have said multiple
I
times.
want to maintain some amount of order here, though I do kind of love the violent conflict, right? Like, I'm hoping somebody throws a punch, right? Like, it would be really funny if we're talking about, like, violence and non-violence and aggression and non-aggression, and then somebody gets really aggressive. Michael, did you have a 30-second
30
final
seconds.
thought to
What I
cap
want
us
to
off?
say is what shouldn't be happening, which is happening, is the federal government is funding abortions. That is absolutely wrong. They should not be funding them.
Support the Hyde Amendment.
And furthermore, they're also funding all kinds of other, they're putting their finger on the scale in many ways, culturally, socially. They're trying to tip the scales in particular directions. They should not be doing that at all. Get the state out of these matters. Thank you.
So I want to bring us all together and sort of have a